Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl I Love, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. Welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project, and thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm all about wanting to share stories, inspirational stories, and positive stories of hope and transformation, and just recovering from either injuries or things in life that kind of take us down. And our guest today is fantastic. She's going to tell us her story. Her name is Sue Spencer. She is an entrepreneur, a coach, and owner of Lift You Up Coaching. She's also known as Beast Mode Grandma because she is not your average grandma, and she's going to tell us all about it. So Sue, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you being here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of give a little bit of a background, and I'm just going to turn the mic over to you and you just run with it. So basically, in your late 50s, you decided to make a positive change in your life, and you made an incredible transformation. So tell us about that. What prompted you to make a change? You know, what was your life like when you sat down and said, this has got to change and this is what I'm going to do? And then that whole journey, because I think it's such a fascinating story.
Thanks. Well, I started at about 58 and a half is when I actually started. I was 6 months away from 59, and I just suddenly thought, oh my gosh, here I am, still carrying around my baby weight from my son, who was born on my 30th birthday. So for a while, and I'd really never, when I was younger, I did some running and stuff, but I really never had done any serious fitness or exercise. And I really just was pretty lethargic. I wasted time watching TV most of the time in the evenings after work, and pretty low energy generally. And so I got to that point where I had a couple of things happen. My brother was quite ill and had cancer.
Oh.
And my daughter was pregnant with my grandson. And I kind of looked at my life and I just thought, like, first of all, oh my God, I'm 18 months away from being 60. And like, what does that mean? Because I don't feel like I'm going to be 60. It seems like such an old age, and there is so much ageism out there and so I just thought, like, I've got to make a change. I don't want to be spending the next 40 years or 20 years or 30 years of my life just being, not able to do the things that I want to do. And, much more health conscious just simply because my brother was so sick. And I wanted to be that healthy grandma that could do all sorts of fun things with my grandson. So I started just by committing to going to the gym. I had taken a holiday, sat on the beach and just sort of contemplated what I was going to do and how I, hadn't been successful in the past of really committing to any kind of fitness or nutrition program. And I just thought, okay, when I get back, I'm going to sign up at a gym and I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm finding one that's between my house and my work. I'm going to go 5 days a week in the morning because I know that if I leave the house, go to the gym, work out, and then go to work, I'm going to feel better in the day, I'm sure. But also, I'm not going to be finding excuses later in the day as to why I can't make it there. So that was my first thing. And I wanted to lose a bunch of weight. I was planning on doing it until I got to 60. I was quite overweight and not strong either, in the way that I should be. So I started at the gym and really had no idea what I was going to do, or how I was going to actually go 5 days a week, like, like it's sort of like pie in the sky. One of my friends said, "Oh yeah, I've heard that before."
Oh,
And so, that probably spurred me on a little bit more than it should have. But I just thought, like, no, I'm doing this. And, I really kind of just decided that you need to open yourself up to possibilities and opportunities that come from that. And it's kind of funny, around that same time, that book by Shonda Rhimes called Year of Yes came out.
mhm.
And I haven't read it, but it's kind of the same kind of philosophy, I think, that I took, that if something came up, the answer is yes, I'll try it. And so that was my attitude, beyond any knowing how anything else was going to work out. I just was going to say yes. And so even the first day I went to the gym for a tour, it was really hard to find parking there. And I almost thought, oh, forget it. And then I thought, no, I've committed. So I think just that shift in mindset of commitment to following through was huge. And when I went through the gym, the fellow that showed me all the equipment, I said, oh, well, there's certain things I don't do because my knees kind of crunch. And he said, oh, we got a guy that can help you with that. So I'm like, okay. So I ended up just saying yes. And so I said yes to this fellow that did gait analysis and fascial release and stuff like that. Huge difference. I didn't have really bad knees. I just had these little crunchy noises that were making as I walked upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And just by changing my gait, and as well as my, just releasing some of the muscle tension, it made a huge difference. So I had bought like a little package to work with him. And I had some left. So he connected me with this young personal trainer named Paul Marlow. And I started working with him. And, I believe truly that things fall into place, and also that you connect to the people you're supposed to connect to if you are on a path. And he just was one of those people that, he's like a 6'7", good-looking guy. I'm like super fit. I'm like this chubby little lady that's like 5'2", probably almost as wide as I am tall. And immediately when I started working with him, I trusted him right from the start. And I think that was me just being all in, was what really helped me make the transformation. So we worked together, and he did strength training and functional fitness, which is what I needed, especially as someone who was a bit older. I didn't need to be doing box jumps and a bunch of running and stuff like that when I was just starting out. And I said to him later, actually, that, if you'd done that, and that was what you made me do, some fit tests where I'm doing like, 15, 20 burpees and things, I probably would have walked out of the gym and just like, no, I'm not bothering. But because he worked with me on strength and developing, I happen to have quite strong legs. So I worked on developing that. It was like a really positive experience. And I really just took the attitude that there's all these other people in the gym and it doesn't matter. I'm focused on the person that I'm working with, and nobody knows my story. Nobody knows where I am in my journey. And so I just need to focus on what I'm doing and how I'm improving.
So I want to stop you just for a moment, because I do want to interject so my listeners know that Paul Marlow was actually a guest on the show, the previous episode, episode 91. And the title of that episode is Taking Action and Overcoming Depression. It's a fantastic episode. And Paul is a really terrific guy. And, I really applaud you for having the courage to step into that gym and to commit. But I really want to give him some credit too for being able to recognize how to work with somebody as an individual. That's so important.
Oh yeah, and it's been really cool for me to have this transformation that I've gone through, but also to see him as well having gone through a transformation of just totally stepping into his power of who he is, and and what he can share with the world. It's really amazing, and I am forever indebted to him for just helping me along this path to fitness and health, for sure.
And I love what you said about him stepping into his power, because that is what he did. And that's exactly what you did. I mean, did you even realize how powerful and strong, not only just, physically, but internally, that you were, or you had that much power inside of you?
No, definitely not. I think in the back of my mind, I had that sort of I can do anything type of idea, but it never showed up anywhere until then. But yeah, like as like it's so crazy that people just think of fitness and mental health and nutrition as three separate things, that fitness and nutrition go together, but that mental health part of it is just like it flows into it. And it's so important for people, as they're certainly women going through menopause,
Oh,
to
yeah.
have that outlet and that physical movement, whatever you're doing. I happen to have chosen Olympic weightlifting, which is like pretty crazy, but that's, I never, if you told me 10 years ago, I would have just looked at you like you were totally nuts. It just wouldn't have, like there's no possibility. But so I worked with him, and at one point it got to the point, like I was trying to lose weight as well. And I really appreciated that he gave me some tips, but also just really said, you need to change the way that you're eating. And perhaps, like, here's some ideas that you could do as far as, he's not a nutritionist. He didn't give me a meal plan, but he, said, these are some tips that you could be using. So I really adjusted my way of eating. I went from a total junk food person to really eating healthy. I generally eat whole foods. I've gotten now where most of my diet is pretty close to carnivore or low, keto, because not because I believe that that's better than anything else, really, but it's better than anything else for me. And I think that that's a really important part of women in particular, but generally any age. As you are getting older, your body changes, and the things that you ate maybe 10 years ago don't necessarily suit you anymore. Maybe they actually upset your stomach. You just don't know. But I think changing the way that I ate made a huge difference. And I went from about 248 pounds down to about 275 or 175 pounds. I'm not that now, I have to admit. My body is adjusted, and as it does, and I weigh more than that now, but my strength is what really changed. And it's hard to say when you're just losing weight, then the number goes down and that's the number. But when you're actually building muscle at the same time, that number balances out, and it turns out to be that, now I know that I've got some weight to lose in order to be feeling my healthiest, but it's not necessarily going to be like the 120-pound person that a 5'2" person perhaps could be, because I know that I have so much muscle. And so I'm, anyway, I really changed how I ate. I lost a lot of weight. I continued to work out, and I found that at one point I'd got where my goal was. And so he said, you need to get another choice of something to do. And, what's going to really drive you? What's your goal? And so
I just have to interrupt again, because I really respect that, because a lot of people might look at someone, you and I are the same age, look at someone our age and say, well, this is pretty good. You're doing pretty well, and just kind of plateau there. But he really gave you the encouragement to really challenge yourself and push yourself. And the other two things that I wanted to point out, thank you so much for saying that, you have to change your diet or change how you eat. And you made small changes and you made choices. It wasn't going on a diet and somebody telling you what you had to do. And it was just figuring it out. He gave you tips and you were able to work out what worked for you. And that, again, that's so empowering.
Yeah, I think it's so important for people. I always use the example of my daughter and myself. I am like all about the meat and, like always have been. She's a vegan and her skin is amazing. She's super healthy. And that's what works for her.
Right.
And so, she can't say that mine is wrong and I can't say that hers is wrong. It's what you have to find what works for you. And I eat very little grains because I know I do better when I don't. So that's what I aim for. But yeah, so I had to find out what I was going to do. It was going to be my goal. And what I did was I looked on, I guess we'd been doing some weightlifting, and I found, I could do a fairly heavy deadlift. And my max that I've ever done is 295 pounds,
Oh my God.
which is... But yeah, so I looked around, and my brother-in-law used to swim, and he had been in the World Masters Games in Edmonton in Canada. I think it was the second World Masters Games, and he'd been a swimmer in it. And I thought, oh, I wonder if they have like powerlifting, like deadlift and bench press and squat, and I could do a pretty heavy squat. So I looked, and they didn't, but they had Olympic weightlifting. And so I kind of Googled it. And so then I went into the gym the next day, and I said to him, well, I've got my goal. I want to, that was probably 2015. I said, I want to learn how to do Olympic weightlifting. And my goal is to go to the World Masters Games in New Zealand in 2017. And so he said, okay. Been an athlete, gone on a scholarship through baseball to university in the States, and they'd done weightlifting as part of their training there. And so he knew kind of how to do it, and he was very, very good about, finding information about how to do it for me if there was something that he didn't know. So I started from this person who not only didn't know how to do Olympic lifting, but who was a total non-athlete. I'd never done any sports. I'd never competed in anything as a kid. And we just worked on it. And at one point I had like a little bit of an injury because I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. And I sorted that out. He connected me with a friend who was a massage therapist who I still work with now, is just amazing. And I just kept going, and we, it started out from just like totally using your arms to what they call muscle it up, like not actually using a whole lot of technique, to now being much, much better at it. So the first time I competed, I was 62 and almost 63. And I went to a provincial, because I live in Canada, in British Columbia, I went to a provincial competition, and I was quite surprised that I did it fine. He kept saying to me, you have no idea when you're in the gym, it's totally different than competition. So just be prepared that if it doesn't go how you expect, don't worry about it. And so what I found out was when I get to a competition, I'm just like all about the business. I just have this calm that comes over me. Done a lot of mental work on that, but I just walk out and I do my thing. And I actually have a video of that he took of the first lift that I did. And it's really funny because my daughter said my eyes were huge because I was so surprised that it had gone up so easily. But I can hear his voice in the background of it commenting, and he obviously absorbed any energy that would have been nervous for me. So that was great. But yeah, so once I'd done it once, it was like, wow, this is so fun. And the people are so great. And that's the great thing about masters. Just about any master's sport, I can't think of any that I've ever heard of that people are not super welcoming. And generally in the gym, as much as we like to think that when we go in there, everybody's looking at us and thinking, oh my gosh, what's that fat person doing? The fact is that they're not really. Oh, of course, there's always those kinds of people that will, but generally that's not the way. And if they see somebody of any size working really hard on a daily basis to improve and improving, then they admire that. And it doesn't matter what age you are, you admire somebody who works really hard. And so I've always found it to be very inclusive in the gym. It's not what I would have thought I would find, but I have found it to be very inclusive. And, there's been times when I've gone to use like when I did the 725-pound leg press. There was a fellow that had been using it, and I went to change some weights on it, and he said, "Oh, do you want me to take them all off?" And I said, "Oh no, I'm fine." And I could see him in my peripheral vision, standing there, wondering what this woman was going to do. But I actually did it, and I've since then once every 6 months or so, I do as heavy a deadlift as I can, or I do as heavy, a leg press, just to push my limit of how much I can do, because it's not something that you when you're doing an Olympic lift, the first part of the lift is like a deadlift, but I'm not going to be ever lifting 700 pounds, perhaps in my dreams on a deadlift.
So I just have to say, as a martial artist, and imagining you pressing, those legs must be so strong. I would love to teach you how to kick someone.
I've tried boxing, but what I find is that there's certain sports that I think you have to commit to. And with Olympic lifting, you're moving your body in a certain way of like straight up and down. And kickboxing moves your body like in a different way. And what I was finding the times that I did it, or any kind of boxing, that I found that when I did it afterwards, like my muscles were used differently than I wanted to be using them. So I kind of thought, well, I better not get into that. So I concentrate on Olympic lifting. It's a far more technical sport than you would ever dream.
I could imagine.
When you see these people in the Olympics lifting these huge weights and just, like balancing it on their shoulders, like 300-400 pounds, like some of the CrossFit fellows that I've seen and Olympic lifters, like it's just amazing what they can lift. And it's just being able to technically do it so that it becomes fluid and you catch it. So that's been a challenge. I got to the point where I was getting pretty good at it, and now I'm working with a different trainer because Paul is retired from personal training, and I work with a trainer that I'm just really working on all the little technique things about that I need to change.
So,
but anyway, so I went to the New Zealand for the World Masters Games, and I got a gold medal. And I say that sort of offhandedly because I find it kind of funny. Like my mom, who just passed away recently, she was 96. Every time I competed, she'd tell her brother and sister, "Oh, she got another medal." And I'm like, it's pretty cool because I'm there. And yes, there aren't other people in my weight class and age class, but they're sitting on the couch and I'm not.
I have another question for you. When you meet somebody for the first time or somebody who doesn't know you very well, and when you say, "Oh yeah, I just happen to be an Olympic, weightlifting gold medalist," I mean, are they surprised? How do they respond?
Usually they're surprised for sure, because I don't look like an athlete in any way. Well, I guess I kind of do, but I
saw the pictures. You do in the pictures, very much so. You do look like beast mode grandma.
I think that a lot of people are super surprised just because it's sort of unconventional, and certainly because I came to it later in life. I think that once you sort of start talking about it, originally I've done some public speaking and about making these changes in life. And the first time that I went to do a a talk. I was talking to some people and they sort of said, well, what do you do? And I said, kind of like, well, I'm an Olympic weightlifter. So I'm not from the Olympics. So this is a qualification. I say Olympic weightlifting. It's actually just called weightlifting. But when you say weightlifting, people think of the powerlifting, and it isn't. It's the same thing that they do in the Olympics. So anyway, everybody reacts like, oh my God, really? That's so amazing, and then wants to know more. So it's been a really awesome way of connecting with people. And I have an Instagram account that I've set up now. And I started this small company called Lift You Up Coaching, which I'm hoping to grow, really mainly working with women like myself who got to a point in life where they're like, they spend all their life looking after their family or work and family or just work, and really didn't take that time to really look at their own personal health and well-being. And I got to tell you, whatever kind of exercise you do, your mental health improves. Even if you didn't think you had a problem with your mental health, or that you were depressed, or you were anything else, your mental health will improve dramatically, no matter what, where you are on the spectrum of feeling good about yourself, you will feel even better. And it's just because you've connected that whole mind body thing. So that is what I've really found. And my company is working with women, like I said, sort of like me, who really kind of think it's the end of the time, that life's over, and what am I going to do now? Sit and watch TV or do puzzles or something like that. And it's just not the case. There's so many women that are, embracing life and embracing activity as they get older. And I think that that's something that everybody needs to sort of bring into their lives, certainly as they're getting older, and women going through menopause as well. I was at an event where a woman was 45, and she said, I just feel like my life is over. And I'm like, oh no, hell no. You got a long way to go. And, that does make me laugh, that people that are 40 are like, oh my gosh, now, I'm on the downhill slide. This is, over. And I'm thinking, you're probably in this day and age, unless you get some kind of illness, you're probably maybe halfway there.
Right.
You're going to live to be 80 plus, most likely. Most people are.
Well, I think a lot of people, especially women, in that mid 40 range, I know that I wasn't in a very happy place when I was there myself for several reasons, but it's hard to see past that. It's like, oh my gosh, if my life is like this now, what's it going to be like in 20 years? And I'd like to share with the listening audience that it can be fantastic. And you are a great example of that. And what I love about, what you said is that movement makes you feel better. I mean, movement is actually life. It's not just getting into physical shape. It's physical, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's emotional, it's, cognitive, it's everything. And that you found something that was pretty unconventional and it worked for you. But there's so many other things out there available that we can try and we can explore. Different movement patterns, different activities, different arts. I mean, there's just so much out there to explore. So I have got to take my hat off to you and salute you for giving people, not only finding that power within yourself, but now you're sharing it and helping other people find that path for themselves. And everybody's different.
It's so true. We are all so different, but we all are so the same, in that you just have to find something that you're passionate about. And if you don't start looking, you won't find it. But also, it could pop up in the most odd way. And certainly Olympic lifting for me did. I seriously would never have dreamt that that's what I was going to do. And I just love it. Like, I spend an hour in the gym working out, and it's like a meditation to me, because you have to be focused on what you're doing. And when I'm done, I walk out of that gym and I feel like I've just had like a really, not relaxing because I've worked hard, but just like mentally relaxing time, that I'm now clear because I've focused on nothing else. So I really love to work out in the morning, I've found, because of that.
Mm-hmm.
It starts my day as a good routine, but it also starts my day in a way that I'm, the endorphins are going and I've got the energy that I'm, rather than just being tired
Mm-hmm.
of, which you would think when you've worked out, but once you get going on it, you don't. It just energizes you. So I've been doing that, and I went to New Zealand, and some big things for me. I am not a big traveler. I by car, camping, things like that, absolutely. But flying to different countries, and certainly on my own, that was the first time I'd actually ever done something like that, where I was fortunate enough to have a company sponsor me and pay my airfare. So I flew to Singapore from Vancouver, and then from Shanghai, and then to New Zealand. And I did that route back. So it was like 2 days each way. It was a crazy amount of time, but I did it. And, when I got to New Zealand, what am I going to do? Am I going to be just going to the venue and then spending this time, worried about anything that I'm doing and staying at home at the Airbnb I stayed at? Or am I going to explore? And I actually, I didn't go and travel the entire country like some people did. But for me to have gone and be comfortable and have done the competition and done well, I did all my lifts, like that was important. And it's opened up that world to me of just being confident in, you can go somewhere that luckily there I spoke the language, but you can go somewhere that's different and you'll be okay. And, it opens up a world of people that you would never know existed. And so I've made some amazing friends from competing at different competitions. And I think that that's the thing that as we get older, our friends get set in their ways as well. And if you're willing to step out and just say, yes, I'm going to try it, then you kind of, in a way, leave those friends behind sometimes. And so it's really neat that there's always those people out there that will connect with you and that shared experience.
And that's okay when you have to leave some of those friends behind, because, it's sometimes you just outgrow them, or, it's just not a good match. And that's okay. But the nice thing about that is, even as you're leaving old friends behind that are no longer serving you well in your relationships, there's so many more people out there to meet.
Yeah. And it's, I'm kind of blown away. Like, yes, with CrossFit, there's many more women that are starting to do Olympic lifting and competing specifically in that sport. But there's probably about 15 women that are between 15 to 20 that are between 65 and death, I guess you could say. That because there's some women in their late 70s that compete, and older, I'm sure, in other areas of the world. And so there's so many people. There's a woman from locally to me that is in her late 70s, and she competed for the first time when she was 70.
Jeez.
Her husband had always been a lifter and she'd never been interested, and then she decided she was going to do it, and now she competes all over the place. And I have a couple of other friends that started in their late 60s, early 70s, that they're competing still, and there's tons of them. So more coming up. So it's kind of neat to see that people are realizing that age isn't really a factor, and well, yes, with training, you do need to be more aware of injury and things like that. If you're healthy and you've trained properly, then, the sky's kind of the limit of what you're capable of doing, what your body will allow you to do, and your mind. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of mental preparation. And one of the things that I learned right from the start was, after the first couple of competitions, because they were travel, I knew that my coach wasn't going to be coming with me. So it was probably one of the best things I ever did, was we just worked on mental preparation so that you can go, like lifting in competition when the spotlight is on you, that's can be scary. But there's also the whole thing of all these people you don't know in the background who are all getting prepared. And it's intimidating because there's some people that have been doing this forever, and male and female. So that was a really big thing of being prepared to go in and claim your space. And I love that, because claiming your space in that instance, and also claiming your space wherever you are, is so huge. And until you can really do that, and like I had said earlier, like stepping into your power, it's huge. I'm not always stepping into my power. I definitely could do better at that a lot of times, but there's certain times when I can do that. And that's what really helped me, was the mental preparation, and goes back to being mentally healthy because of the sport that I'm doing, because of the exercise and the commitment and things like that. So yeah, it flows into all parts of your life when you make changes like that.
So Sue, how can people get a hold of you? How could they find you? And we're going to have your links to social media and stuff on the episode, but I just want you to tell people, where they can find you.
My website is liftyupcoaching.com. Needs to be a little bit updated, but you can certainly get me through that. My email is just sue@liftyupcoaching.com. I have an Instagram account by the same name, Lift You Up Coaching, and I also have one that is Beast Mode Grandma. So if you can't remember anything else, you can find me through that. And I have a link to my regular Instagram. I originally had Beast Mode Grandma, and it's such a cool name. I didn't want to get rid of it because I knew somebody would snap it up. And so I still keep it, and I post on it periodically, but the majority of my weightlifting and sort of inspirational stuff that I post is on my Lift You Up Coaching.
Okay.
And I'm also on Twitter and Facebook under both those names.
And you're also on LinkedIn, because I just,
yes.
We connected today, this morning.
Yeah.
Well, Sue, oh my gosh, I tell you, you are truly an amazing woman. You truly are an inspiration. And I am so honored to have met you and to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. It's just been great.
I appreciate you having me.
Is there any last words of wisdom or little pearls of wisdom or anything else you want to leave us with? You've given us so much to think about, and I'll bet all of the people listening to this, if they don't have an exercise routine, they're going to be starting to look at something.
I think just give it a try and don't worry about other people. You're surprised who's out there that will help you. A lot of times people just think, oh, everybody's judging me, and they're not really. They're all too concerned with their own selves. But, my main thing was say yes to opportunities and the possibilities that could come from that. And it certainly hasn't steered me wrong. There's some things I've tried that I haven't wanted to bother doing again, but definitely it's changed my outlook on life, and it allows me to step forward and say yes and try something different every time. And I think that's the key of just being consistent. Get yourself a routine of whatever it is, of whenever you're going to do that activity, and try and do it at the same time every day. That's helpful for sure.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And thanks again for being on the show. You're awesome.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for listening. I really appreciate you. And just remember to get yourself a routine and just take your power back by getting out and doing something different. And don't worry what anybody else might think or say, because that is the way of the FemiNinja. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.